All right, welcome to this week's video. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about productivity and give you a few tips on how you can be more productive at work or in university if you're still a student. I know there's a lot of videos out there talking about how you can become more productive, and I've consumed a lot of those videos as well, but only a few of those tips really help me. And so in this video, I'd like to share with you a few tips that really help me, and those are proven things that I've done throughout my career, my student life, and I can really say that those things really made a difference in my life. So stick to the end because I'm going to be giving you a few tips on how you can become more productive and efficient with your time. All right, number one for me would be to build habits. And one way you can do that is to track your streaks, track your progress, and whether you're doing a certain activity every single day without failure. If they become non-negotiables, if every single day you have to do them, that's a very powerful technique because there's always this psychological pressure in your head that you need to accomplish them. And so one concrete way that you can do that, for example, is to simply, track the things you want to accomplish. And it's better to do a little bit every single day, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever fits your schedule, than being inconsistent and doing a bunch at once in one weekend, let's say, and never touching that thing again. But the tip here is to really track your streaks. How can you keep track of how many days consecutively you've been doing a certain activity? So for example, in my case, I'd like to do a few things. For example, I'd like to improve my data structures and algorithms skills. Those are interview questions, usually if you're a software engineer, that they ask you to solve a few computer science problems. And I've always wanted to be better at those things. And so one thing at first that I did wrong was that I was trying to really study whenever it fit my schedule. So for example, set a week or maybe a weekend where I'll do a bunch of those exercises. I would study a lot and I would maybe spend 8 hours in one day just sitting, reading books and like trying to become better at those things. But then I realized it's much better to do consistent small steps every single day. So what I've been doing now is setting 5 to 10 minutes every single day where I sit down to solve a lead code problem, a data structures and algorithms problems, or I read an article about a certain technique. But the tip here is really to track your progress, track how many consecutive days you've been doing a certain activity. And I'm sure there's a bunch of apps to do that. I've also tried a bunch of them, but you can simply go to App Store or Google Play Store, whatever you use, and then find a streak app. I'm sure there's a bunch of those there. And even the Notepad app, right? You can just like keep a notepad open and always update the number of streaks you've been doing. That's what I started doing as well. I have a list of maybe 4 or 5 activities that I wanted to be doing, and then every single day I'll just increment how many days I've been doing that thing. And it's crazy how powerful that is, because once you build a 14-20 day streak on something, it's really crazy how you have this pressure of doing that thing again. Otherwise you have this feeling that all of that effort is going to be for nothing. And I've also noticed how that works also if you're trying to stop a bad habit. For example, keeping a streak of how many consecutive days you have not been doing a certain thing, that's also very powerful, and it really keeps you from doing a certain bad habit. In my case, for example, I had the very bad habit of biting my nails, and I've always wanted to stop it. I've tried so many different techniques. I'll buy nail polish that would taste horribly. I would try also fidget toys, so I'll keep my hands busy when I was working. So many different things I've tried, but only after I really kept a streak going of how many times, how many days I was without biting my nails, that's what really made me stop the habit. Because I would look at those numbers and I'll be, damn, if I bite my nails right now, all of those numbers will be gone. All those days that I really worked hard for are gonna be gone. So you have all of this, accumulated effort that you put into, that's not gonna go to waste. So that's a very powerful technique also if you're trying to stop a bad habit. Tip number 2 has to do with procrastination, and a very powerful technique for you to stop procrastinating and putting things off to the next day. And for me, that was definitely to keep a backlog of items that I knew I should be doing. And the important thing here is to really write them very specifically, write them so there are concrete activities that you could be doing right now instead of keeping them general. So for example, let's say, you're booking your next vacation and you got to be booking hotels or flights. You could write down on your backlog, plan your vacations, but you can also be very specific about it and say book hotel on city X for X many days, right? And whenever you have that very specific backlog, you should be doing something. So whenever you are, sitting on the couch, maybe you're just scrolling on social media, you can just simply open your Notepad app. You see all the backlog activities you have, and those are very concrete things. You know exactly what you should be doing right now. There's no reason why you should be putting that off right now, right? So, and that could be with any app. As I said again, I'm sure there's a bunch of cool apps you can find that makes it better, but just a simple, notepad app can really do the job. Just a list of things that you should be doing at the moment. And whenever you catch yourself, procrastinating, doing something that's not really productive, then you can simply open that backlog list and see concrete things that you should be doing right now. And maybe those things are very easy to do. Maybe it only takes you 5 minutes, but because sometimes we accumulate so many different things, there's so many different things in the back of our head that we're thinking about, we get overwhelmed. And then the natural response of our body is just simply, I'm gonna put that off. I'm just gonna relax for a bit because there's so many things I cannot deal with that right now. But if you simplify really the steps you need to do, so it's as simple as, going to this website and booking a hotel, is gonna make it much easier, because now you have a concrete next step. You don't have to spend all the energy again to think about what are the things you have to do, what are the things you need to plan. Everything's already written down and already digested for you. All you gotta do is open your backlog app and just do the next thing that's there. Tip number 3 is to really invest in good tools, because it can really make a difference and they can save you a lot of time. And that's funny because most of my life, sometimes I could have been a bit cheap and I would refuse to spend money on something that I deemed unnecessary. Only if it was the extreme case where I really needed something, I would spend my money on it. And one example was my phone, right? My old smartphone, where I kept it for almost 8 years. And in the end, it was barely working. I mean, you could only work with email and WhatsApp for sending messages, but all of the newer apps, it really wouldn't work anymore. And I was just simply using my iPhone for very basic stuff. And it was only when I changed to a newer model that I realized how much more efficient I could be with my time. Because now, an activity that would take me 30 minutes, because I'll have to go to the computer, I had to open my laptop and do that there, I can very simply get my newer smartphone and just do it over there. In 5 minutes, I was done, right? And so I realized I was actually buying my time back. All the money that I invested on this new tool, I was actually buying my time back because I was being more efficient now. What's important here is to really try to differentiate between which things are tools, which things are productive tools that actually gonna make your life more efficient, versus which things are just consuming devices that you don't really need and that don't really justify the investment. So for example, if you work with video editing, for example, maybe you're trying to edit a video on a very old computer and that's taking forever to edit. You're spending all these hours trying to process certain video clips, versus if you had just invested a bit of money on a newer computer that can make your life 10 times faster, for example, you're actually buying your time back, right? Versus if you just bought a new computer just to play games or to, just watch Netflix movies, you're just consuming stuff, then sure, maybe you wouldn't justify the investment because you're just using that to watch your content on a better screen, on a better device. So really try to be aware of the things that really make a difference and it can really, make you more productive. So which things do you think that if you bought right now would make your life much more productive? And the key point here is to really, which tools do you need, and not just simply consuming devices, things that do not justify the investment. When I give these tips here, it might sound like I'm telling you to be productive all the time, to always have this go-go mindset, that we cannot afford, relaxation time. We cannot afford losing time doing on things that are unnecessary. That's definitely not what I'm saying. And I think relaxation time is also important. Leisure activities are also very important. And my 4th tip here is to really be intentional about the relaxation activities that you choose to do. So for example, I could spend 1 hour that I have free to just be on the couch scrolling on social media, and I'll probably feel more tired afterwards. It wouldn't even make me feel recovered and rested afterwards. Versus if I just spent that 1 hour very intentional, doing something that I really enjoy, then I'll probably feel much better, right? So it depends a lot on what things bring you joy, but as long as you're intentional about your free time and actually use them to do things that you truly enjoy, then that's perfectly fine. I mean, for example, in my case, I could spend 1 hour, just scrolling on social media on the couch, or I could simply go for a walk outside. I could play games with my family, even go to the gym for that 1 hour. That's gonna make me feel much better than if I was just, doing something mindlessly without even being aware of my leisure time. And so even if that means, getting a massage, going to a spa, that's much better time spent, because you're gonna feel a lot more recovered much quicker, versus if you're just doing something that probably gonna make you feel worse in the end. All right, as a bonus tip here, I have extreme prioritization, right? And that goes really well if you're also keeping a streak of non-negotiable activities you gotta do every single day. If you have things that you gotta do no matter what every single day, then those are probably one of your higher priority tasks. And you have a bunch of other stuff in your backlog activities that, sure, you gotta do them, but they're not as important, then it's a no-brainer, what's the next thing you could be doing. So for example, let's say, you know, one of my non-negotiables is to do a German lesson every day on a online platform for learning languages, for example. I could be doing that versus I could, you know, go into the mall and buy something that I need there. Maybe like I need to buy t-shirts, whatever. For me, you know, it becomes clear that the next thing that I should be doing is to finishing that German lesson class. This might sound like a no-brainer, and of course, you gotta do the things that have higher priorities. But how many times, you know, do you catch yourself doing something that it doesn't really matter if you do them now or next week? How many times, you know, you do something that you could be doing something that's more valuable right now? At least that happens to me a lot, where I catch myself, you know, for example, at work, they give me a task where I need to build a certain application for software development, for example, in my case, and I spend all these hours trying to do very specific, detailed things. You know, maybe I'm trying to like optimize a few tests, and then I waste all of this time because I'm, you know, being very peculiar about a certain minor thing that won't really matter in the end. Versus if I had just spent the time looking at my task from a bigger perspective, I could, you know, accomplish the ultimate goal faster. And those, you know, minor activities, those minor details, they can come later, right? But the most important thing is to really do the things that are gonna really solve the problem. So which things, you know, are you putting off even though they have a higher priority? But these were just a few tips that really helped me become more efficient with my time and become more productive. So if you stayed to the end, thank you very much, and I see you next time.